Sabrina joins us today to unpack belief systems, healing, and the human side of entrepreneurship. This conversation moves from Chinese medicine to Dragon's Den and straight into the heart of what actually changes lives. Have you always been quite good at identifying the things that you don't versus do enjoy, or maybe potentially are good at?
No. I would say, as a young child or as a teenager, I was very shy and I couldn't even, even 16, 17, read off of a menu and order something when I was with family. They had to order for me. There was some kind of paralysis there. And then when I was living on my own at about 18, I realized pretty quick that I was not going to survive if I didn't adjust my personality. And that was my moment. Other people probably could have made it through life just fine, but I had to adjust my personality, and I chose jobs that were social. So like hostessing, serving, where I had to have conversations with people and deal with a little bit of stress. So I adjusted my personality to learn how to talk to people.
That's quite a challenge, forced discomfort realistically, right? And I mean, obviously, when you're forced into those situations, then you have to kind of adapt and learn the tools and skill sets that maybe made you uncomfortable before. But why did you feel like you needed to?
Part of it came from a financial need. If I looked at some of my friends or colleagues that went into jobs that had just minimum wage pay, those jobs just didn't appeal to me, first of all, but I could have done them. They would have been easier on my personality, but I was looking at, okay, I have to pay for my own schooling. I have to pay for my own rent. I have to do all of these pieces. So where are the jobs where I can make a little bit more to sustain myself? And those were all service jobs. And I like people. I like one-on-ones, but those environments, when I first started serving, I was horrible. They just kept me around, I think, because I at least got along with everyone, but they just kept me around, I think, because they felt bad. Really, they had a soft spot for me, and they just kept me around. I think about quite a few of those managers, that just the look in their eyes when I would screw up. However, I did develop into someone that I went on. One of my last serving jobs was at the Fairmont Palliser in Calgary. And at the time, I don't know if they still do it, but they had something called the White Hat Awards. So it was a service-based award, and everyone would get nominated. And one year I got nominated, went for an interview, and that year at the Jubilee, I was presented with an award. So it took me, I would say, a good 8 years, but that, the Fairmont fit me. It was interesting because I worked at other restaurants you would be very familiar with, and I didn't quite fit into the social environment. And I think that also caused a little bit of retreat in me, where I was just kind of discombobulated, but they, felt maybe I was a good person, so they kept me around. But the Fairmont, it didn't make sense to anybody, because I think most people know about the Fairmont, right? They're known for their customer service. And so when I got the job there, everyone was like, "You're kidding me, right? You're going to work at the Fairmont?" But the Fairmont, they don't train you to be better. They look for a personality that actually, I believe, just likes human beings. And I think that was in me, what I didn't even know at the time. So how I interacted with people came from not a serving place. It came from a human place. And and it was a great accolade for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's huge. That's a huge award. And yeah, all Calgary listeners will definitely know what the White Hat Awards are. So congrats. And also, I love that story because I've never heard about anybody working at that establishment, but I do know that, places that aren't trying to change you, that aren't trying to change who you are fundamentally or how you go about the work that you do, and just like kind of engage you and meet you where you're at so that you can perform the best to your ability, definitely, typically are more well known for their service in general, because they're not trying to change the individuals that are either patrons or staff.
Yeah, I can't speak, and that was my late 20s, and I'm now in my 40s. So it was, about almost 20 years ago. And I still have communication with a lot of those staff that are still there, or management or what have you. They're just, I can't speak, I can speak about every other experience, but I would say the Fairmont is by far my most loved work experience I've ever had.
Amazing. Well, I hope somebody from the Fairmont is listening, because that's quite a high praise. and I think we'll get into this, but I think there's probably so many things that you might have learned there that translate into what you do now. So along this journey, and I mean, realistically, we started with talking about how, confidence building and becoming more comfortable in front of people and getting out of that shy shell and that sort of thing. And now you've gone on to do the Dragon's Den, which is very front facing. You're an entrepreneur, which is very front facing. You're doing this, which is, so there's lots of different things. So quite the journey. But from hospitality to healthcare, and specifically Chinese medicine, how did that come about?
So I've always loved science. I dreamed as a young kid of being a doctor. Horrible at chemistry, fantastic at biology and physics. And so when I was looking into going to post-secondary, I did, some sciences, but my stepfather, he handed me this little brochure. I was in Calgary, and he said, I think you should look into this form of medicine. And at the time, I wasn't even thinking about Chinese medicine because it wasn't regulated. All I knew of Chinese medicine was, what you see on TV, really. And so I remember exactly where I was. I remember it was this little blue book, and I thought, okay, yeah, I'll take a look. So sent in an application, and the more I looked at all the pieces of the education, I knew even at a young age that my personality would not fit into Western medicine. I enjoy it, but if I observed how most doctors get to experience their day-to-day life, it wasn't for me. I like spending a lot of time with people. And from my perception as a patient, it just, it looked like you go on this long journey for schooling, and then you work with patients for a short amount of time, and you don't always have all the options to really, see a big change for them. You're referring and what have you. And, everyone gets into medicine for different reasons, but I just knew my personality would not fit into that environment. So I went into Chinese medicine, and it was almost surreal. It was like I was led there because it made no real sense with my environment or anything like that. So I was the youngest in my class. It wasn't regulated at the time. I was one of the few Caucasian people in that class, and everyone was like, what are you doing here, and what are you doing? So that piece started while I was serving as well. So that's how I put myself through school. And I learned early on in the schooling that it was for me. There was a way of looking at the body and the mind and the spirit that wasn't so esoteric. It was just a common cultural thing that wasn't really big in North America. And so things that maybe didn't logically make sense, kind of gut instinct, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. So I wouldn't say I understood everything at the time, and I still don't. But that's it. The ball started rolling from there. And then I finished my schooling. And at a time where everyone was starting clinics and businesses and working in places, I really recognized that I knew nothing. I knew nothing. So I worked a million jobs because I really wanted to get myself to China. So I went to China. I studied in some of the hospitals where they have full integration. So if you have a stroke, they're stabilizing you, and then you're getting acupuncture or using the herbs that are on site. So it's very integrated. But at that time, SARS broke out. So for anyone, it was, a smaller epidemic. But I also got to witness what it was like being on the other side of the world, and experiencing kind of how a different culture deals with an epidemic like that. So that was interesting to me. I liked observing and watching. So I came back a little bit earlier, and then I found a mentor, kind of like a Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. And so that ended up significantly, my two significant pieces, the Fairmont, and then mentoring under this little fellow, Dr. David Chu. And he was well known in our industry, but also in Western medicine. He had a Western medical background. And so the Tom Baker Cancer Center at the time would refer patients to him. And they had a significant level of trust in order to do that. So I volunteered. I built up his trust because he was like, "What are you doing here?" Probably volunteered for 6 months, and then I became his assistant, and I worked with him for about 6 years. And that's a long time to do a mentorship, but he saw the most complicated cases from everywhere you can imagine. And his way of doing medicine, I don't think he could get away with it now. He was very risky. He did many things that were not by the book. And so it was the Wild West. But with that experience, he taught me how to manage risk. Because I think in medicine, a lot, there is always this risk versus benefit, right? And he was more of the thought, well, logically, I know that this could work here and this could work here, and it is the practice of medicine. And I've been doing it long enough that I know I'm not going to harm anybody. So let's practice with these pieces. And I saw him go outside of dosing, out of traditional protocols, and I saw the wins that he had. And that also changed that fear model in me of, okay, I don't need to reference my book every single time. I can actually just observe the patient and use that as a bit of the foundation and figure out what's going on.
Experience trumps kind of like books there 100%, in that sense. Yeah.
100% experience, but also that was really unique. I wouldn't have even come close to getting that experience if I went to China. In China, when I went there, it wasn't even the same medicine. And I was surprised when I went there. I had this idea of it being this kind of, again, Mr. Miyagi, kind of like, oh, everyone's in it together. But rightfully so, it's a very protective medicine and culture too. And so I probably, I mentored with my colleague here for 6 years. I probably would have had to mentor there for 10, 15 in order to really get some appropriate guidance.
Medicine is such a unique, I mean, it's really kind of similar to a lot of things these days with so much regulation around it, right? Like, and to your point, rightfully so. There's things that need to be done to the book in order to lessen, possible risk, et cetera. But also, if you have the experience and can, as you said, kind of observe what's happening with the patient and use your best judgment to potentially help more than you could within the parameters of the book, then why would that not be used? Do you think that there's any way, or maybe there's ways to explore in education that it should be encouraged to kind of like, do what you think is best?
So what I do know is that other countries, even in particular the States, so I've had a lot of experience with other types of modalities, but almost more so Western medicine, having patients come see me that have experienced, or medical doctors themselves, that receive care in the States, in Europe, Japan, India, Africa. They have an ability to kind of navigate the system a little bit more eloquently, and they do take risks. And I don't necessarily understand completely why that is, why we don't take more risks in Canada. I do think, like anything, it starts with education. If you're taught a certain way, then that you're going to be a product of your environment. But doctors all the time use off-label drugs to try to figure out what's going on. And so if things, I think if things were to, in any way, in any industry, adjust from in Canada, it would definitely have to be a complete mindset shift from the beginning of the education till then. And I don't know if that's even on the radar.
I think you're absolutely right. It is like a fundamental mindset shift because it goes far beyond medicine, obviously, but it's like this liability kind of idea that, well, if I experiment and something goes wrong, then I'm liable. So I might as well just leave it, based on the system. And then if I do it by the book and something goes wrong, then it's not my fault.
Yeah. And I think I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes, and I'm like, okay, you went to school for 8 to 10 to 15 years. You spent all of this money and you're human. How can you not think, well, why would I risk it? Why would I risk it? Because then, I might lose something that I have spent so long. And if we can just like gently maybe help and address things, that might be good enough. But I know from working with patients for so long, it isn't good enough just to kind of just get you maybe 20, 30% better. Yeah.
The other thing that I found really interesting throughout that story is that, at every step, whether it be in your first class or studying in China, or even your mentor there saying, what are you doing here? That must be hard, even if you're like convinced that this is what you wanted to do, hearing that at every step must be kind of complicated for you, and pushing through that and justifying almost, whether it be to yourself or externally, that's what you want. What did that feel like and how did you navigate it?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I've only pondered that a few times in my life, because I've had some questions about, how do you do business the way you do it now? Where things don't affect me as deeply as maybe they would affect someone else, because I've built up a level of resiliency by having people call me really nasty things, really, because simply they didn't understand, or maybe there was a religious belief that was attached to what I was doing. And every time someone would attack me, and sometimes they were like blatant attacks. I would be at maybe dinner parties, or I would even have patients come to my clinic early on and say, you know, what you're doing is a hoax, or what you're doing is evil, or what you're doing, so many things. I don't know what it was within me, but I always took what they said to have some sort of value. I wanted to find out why. It wasn't a defense. No, there was always some sort of value to it. So I always went to the point where I could understand where they were coming from and actually get the answers from their perspective, even if we were never going to be on the same page. And so that piece for me, I mean, I have my own beliefs, my spirit and God, and I believe that we are kind of more than our bodies. And so sometimes if people just deal with their challenges just in here, it can be really daunting. And there's a sense of that, you know, if you're trying your best and you're working in integrity, things will work themselves out. But I would say that, again, there's this almost surreal feeling, especially with the health industry that I've been in for so long, that I was kind of led into that space. And so the questions or the comments or the attacks or I still get it, right? I'm in even Western medical environments now. Thankfully, I have enough of a reputation that I'm treated with respect and camaraderie. But there is, in general, always, you know, if people ask me what I do, they're like, oh, you know, it's like, oh, okay. And I've just gotten that so many times that I'm like, it's okay. Because I know the differences that I've made in people's lives. And it's very different when maybe someone has had pain and they don't have pain. But my main specialty has been in infertility, to see families that haven't been able to conceive and have a child. And that might not be relatable to everybody, but I would say everyone can understand the longing to have more love in their life. Really, I think that's what it comes down to. And to create a new beginning. And I think a lot of people, that's a universal thing. It just happens to be that, okay, I'm not seeing a child at the end of this longing, and why? And so when you can work with human beings like that, it is, it's such a sense of, probably satisfaction is not the right word, but it's such a deep sense of connecting to the human being and the human condition and the human spirit, that when the additional kind of outside things come my way, it's like, it's like as you get older and maybe you lose a loved one, perspective on life starts changing. Sometimes the small things don't get to you as much.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that like you identified the outlash and that sort of thing, then you sort of kickback or anything that you felt is purely out of not understanding, right? And once you find that, like, it's either education, like from that individual's perspective, that needs to be kind of the bridge that needs to be gapped to have a mutual understanding and have mutual respect. Or just by doing, like you said, finding that language that you both speak that bridges that gap naturally.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing. I've worked with patients from every religious background and sometimes no religious background, from every culture. I had to, if I was going to sleep at night, I had to find a common thread and a common bond. And so even if we've had different belief systems on many things, at the end of the day, there was always that recognition that this is a human being, and I'm here to serve them and help them? And how can we figure that out? And I think, and I know that if you come from that mindset, kind of the rest of the stuff just doesn't matter as much. So I'm so grateful for the work that I've been able to do with patients. Yes, it is very laborious. It is very laborious. I practice in a way that I would say most of my colleagues do not. I don't run numerous rooms. I spend well over an hour, hour and a half with each person I see. We have conversation, an extensive conversation every time I see them. And yes, it is laborious. It's very laborious, but it's been a real gift that they've given me to kind of let me into their world and work as a team when often patients don't get that anywhere. So I think if I worked in another industry, I don't even know the kind of person I would be, because I'm sure, as you can attest, by talking to people, you always gain something from it personally, right? So it's also been my medicine. And the I don't know if I want to call it the beautiful thing, but a piece of this was that I happened to experience my own secondary infertility. So I have a 5-year-old and we have a 12-year-old. So we had a big gap. And I thought, wait a minute, how can I be experiencing this when I have helped so many? And so that's why I think, that really surreal, wait a minute, you're kind of being led here, that all of the knowledge that I had or care that I had given, I now had to really take and turn on myself and my husband, which we did. And so I almost got to prove it to myself through real life experience that, okay, I do know how to create new beginnings. Yes, it happens to be, a child that comes from it, but yeah, it was an interesting thing when that started popping up for me. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess I know how to do this. And of course, there was always also a sense of like shame too, where I was like, yeah, I have this issue, we have this issue, I better be able to fix this, or else I'm not, worth my salt. And I would say, I don't know if I would say we fixed it. I would say we did a lot of the things that people would do if they were faced with like a cancer diagnosis. And I almost like equate it to that. Most people won't make any adjustments unless they're in pain and big trouble. And so all of the things that we adjusted were things that we wanted to do anyways. We were just kind of a little bit more forced into it. So, and that it's not like it was necessarily a bad thing. It was, we made some adjustments that, benefit us now. Just in the way we think about things, the way we do things, the way we interact. And those don't seem like they would have a direct effect on the physical body. But what I do know, a lot of people that have different ailments, they're always talking about stress. For me, I discovered early on, it really has nothing to do with stress. We are designed to manage stress really well. But what stands in the way are people's belief systems. I think a lot of people can relate to hockey players. They go through immense amounts of stress, physical, mental, emotional, and usually they all have coaches to kind of walk them through how they get to perform. And if they have, a bad day on the ice, they might get off and everyone says, you're horrible, you suck, you shouldn't be on this team. And if they have even just a small part of them that believes that belief system, the next time they get on the ice, their body just can't even perform. It's not the stress. It is the belief system that equates to sending messages to the body that, I do suck, I'm not good. And you can just see how the body reacts to that. And so that piece is my specialty when it comes to the way I practice. It's not the nutraceuticals or the acupuncture. Those are like bottom of the list. It is discovering someone's belief systems and also enhancing their relationship from whatever they have with something larger than themselves. And that might sound like it's a big thing to chomp on, but it's actually quite easy. I find that people, when they just look at, the physical muscles, nerves, whatever, egg, sperm, hormones, they're so fixated in here. And then when I can get them to like bigger picture it from here, it's much easier to see what's going on. Because the most common thing that people tell me is, when I ask them, like, why do you think this is happening? The most common phrase is, I don't know. And, even that makes me teary because I'm like, wait a minute, you're how old? You've gone to school, you've seen many, doctors, you might have post-secondary, and you don't know what's happening with you. And yeah, it hurts my heart a bit. I know it shouldn't be that way when we're trying to figure out. It's great to have a team, an extra set of eyes to be like, wait a minute, I need to, you need to adjust this, this, and this. But when the most common answer is, I don't know, I make it my mission to not just fix, but to learn and educate. So even if I see a person once, they have left with a much better understanding about what's happening with them. So,
as you were talking about this like rewiring of existing beliefs, and I'm sure, the hockey example is great. In fact, Edmonton's dealing with that right now.
Yeah,
quite a bit.
I know.
Unfortunately, but this idea that whether it be just this not enough kind of concept that percolates in people's minds, and whether it be, like as you mentioned, a small amount of belief or a large amount of belief, that varies person to person, but I think everybody experiences that. What is your maybe advice or things for these people that can identify, this is the belief that's kind of limiting me. How do I overcome that?
There's, first of all, the concept of mental health. That mental health has come a long way. We understand more about the mind. But what I've observed and what I understand, what I've discovered, it's not necessarily the mind that needs to be understood or trained or calmed down or rewired. It's actually the heart. So the heart is an organ that pumps blood, but it also has a huge system of different electrical pathways. And I would say there's this beautiful institute out of the States. It's called the Heart Math Institute, and they're a nonprofit, and they've done a ton of research for decades. And I would say maybe in the next 5-10 years, maybe we'll understand more about the heart. But often when people go through different experiences, whether it's a ball was thrown at their head or something bigger, it's actually the heart that breaks a bit. It's the heart that aches a bit. And we've all probably experienced some level of heartache. And when that heart starts to shut down in that capacity, the mind takes over. and it does the job of what the heart is supposed to be doing. And so through that additional chatter that comes, it's like it's gone wild. It's like it's short-circuiting, and you're being kind of fed everything that you've either learned or been passed down or what have you. So a lot of people that look at stress or mental health, they're always kind of chasing this circle here. But if we look at it from the standpoint of perhaps the first part of the system that actually was affected was the heart, and if there is a belief system that comes along with that, how do we navigate those two pieces in order to move forward? And so there's ways of actually engaging the heart that can build up more of an electromagnetic wave. There's this fellow, his name is Todd Herman. He used to live in Edmonton, and he had a dream of working with celebrities and CEOs and big sports people. And I knew him. We sat down for, quite a few coffees to go over things, and he had big dreams. And at the time I was like, okay, cool. But he did. He went to New York and he wrote this book called The Alter Ego Effect. And he was the one who worked with Kobe Bryant to form the persona called the Black Mamba. And his take which is very similar to mine, is a lot of people, they're always kind of looking to the past or looking to fix the negative. His take is you need to really tap into the aspect of you that wants to move forward and the positive piece. And so through that, it's not necessarily about getting down and figuring out, okay, well, where are my belief systems lacking? When you start to understand how to utilize the heart more appropriately, and that's, and maybe an extra episode, but that, and then you receive a little bit of high level kind of coaching, like even the book can be good enough for people. Then you start to see the writing on the wall. You start to say, wait a minute, I notice I do that, or I notice I believe that, or I notice, and it's very easy to self-regulate and move through that when you have some foundational pieces. But if you and I were just to discuss kind of what your life has been about, where maybe your experience have been, I probably could peg a belief system, but it wouldn't help you. You would just have some extra information to think about and maybe battle with. Your body is designed to regulate the mind in a way that most people are not familiar with. And so most athletes, most high-level CEOs, they understand the way these systems work much better than the average person. So my way of doing things may come from a roundabout way, but I have to get someone into a more positive space of, okay, wait a minute, I think I'm going to tap into a version of myself, kind of like when you're a kid and you're playing superhero or whatever, or I want to be this when I get older, a daydream. I want to tap into this. And those pieces, they tend to excite the heart. They tend to, when you get that squishy sensation or that butterfly sensation, you see something cute or you're thinking about something exciting, it tends to activate the heart. And then in turn, the mind actually calms down. You're able to focus 100 times better. You're able to analyze things 100 times better. And so everyone has a different kind of way of doing doing medicine or conversation. But when it comes to belief systems, a lot of people say, well, I'm not enough, or I'm this and that. Yeah, that could be. But I think people just stick with and hang out in that space for way too long, rather than the okay, how do I tap into this other version that knows that it's going to be okay? How do I help the body communicate it appropriately? And also, how do I make this consistently applicable? Like, how is this not just, okay, check off, check off, I did that, I understood this. How do I make this like a deep part of who I am currently? And there's ways to, it's almost, you have to build a little bit of a muscle memory, same like you would with people that talk about meditation or calming the mind. If you can engage in things that activate the heart, so let's say even a lot of times for men, the conversation is not usually in healthcare, it's not usually about, so how are you feeling, and how's life, and what do you really want and need. That doesn't work. It doesn't fly. It doesn't work. I've been there. I know that. For men especially, it can, and yes, maybe I'm putting everyone into a box, but for the purpose of this, a lot of men, they take pride in their work. And for a lot of them, they are not, they're really not satisfied with where they're at. That mini kind of warrior creative person is not really able to express itself. So they, men tend to pass from heart attacks most often after they've retired, even if they didn't really enjoy their job after they've retired, because that sense of accomplishment and excitement, even if they love their family, it can break a heart. And so it has to be conversational, but I would say, I'd hope in the next 10 years that there's a better understanding about beliefs, but the excitement of life again. That's why that alter ego book is, I think, probably one of my best reference books, and understanding that there has to be a sensation in the heart for it to regulate itself. And the final piece, which is kind of a hard one to chomp on, I would say, especially for people nowadays, is that when you start to get to know your system in a different way, you will all of a sudden start to see and have a little bit more clarity about some of the personality traits of yours that are icky. Okay. That most people, if they see them, they will say, oh, but I'm that way because of this, 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 and this. That is like the worst approach ever. I have seen such incredible power and shift and change in blood work, like literal change in blood work, from someone recognizing, oh, I'm really jealous, or I'm really controlling, or I act better than people. And instead of, oh, I'm not going to, but I do that because, I was hurt.
Default. Yeah.
If they can like hone in and be like, okay, I don't want to be, and I've been there, so I know, I've seen it, and I've seen what that change can do. It can change how the chemistry of the body, significantly to be like, okay, well, actually, no, I don't want to be that way, and I'm not going to be that way. And sometimes it's as simple as that personality trait that can come up from belief systems that can kind of feel like, for lack of a better word, a little bit victim-y. If you can get those blind spots kind of coming to the forefront, and say, okay, see ya. You'd be surprised at how simple it can be to just recognize it. Okay, well, I don't want to be that anymore. And it actually very rarely can surface after that. It's not like, oh, this is always who you're going to be. Yeah, I've witnessed it with patients I've known for half an hour where I've had to bring something up. Because I read the chart, but I read the room. And so if something is screaming out in the room, even if it's going to be a very uncomfortable conversation, sometimes I just have to have it. And most people will be like, okay, yeah, let's work through this. And some blow a complete fit and
maybe aren't a fit to work with in that sense. Yeah, totally. Well, I think, I mean, it sounds like it's recognition of obviously the true, not just defaulting to say, oh, this is just who I am because of X and no desire to change. And then the next step is action, obviously, and really working through it, which is hard, right? Leaning into that hard.
I think it's actually just, it can be so significant to actually just recognize something. And I've seen it. You don't need to go to years and weeks and months of counseling to kind of work through it. It's like, okay, yeah, oh, yeah, I guess so. And okay, maybe I'm that way because of this, and this, but I'm an adult now. I'm an adult now. It's time to move forward. And that's what I really try to look at. It's time to move forward than always looking behind you. So the looking behind, you want to do it for a small amount of time? Okay, just for some foundational pieces, but you're going there. Let's just figure out what's standing in the way for you to navigate it better.
Is that foresight required? Like, I mean, that was probably a big motivator for people to identify and change, right? If they want to be somewhere that they aren't, I would assume.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have the mindset of, if I have to fix something or if I want to get somewhere, I've got to clean up my past. And I've been in healthcare now longer than 20 years, and I've seen what that mentality does. And you're just always back there. It's always back there. So it is a conversational piece. Like I said, when we were talking about kind of that alter ego piece or the tapping into a version of yourself that's always been there, there has to be a level of excitement. And when there's a level of excitement about life again, you can see forward. You can see, okay, and then the stuff that comes your way, you can navigate it a lot easier. So yes, people are always thinking, well, I don't want to be full of pain, or I want this business to work, I want this relationship to work, I want this child. But it's not, it's such a constricting way of addressing it. And so we almost have to kind of tap into that kind of childlike aspect of ourselves again to enjoy getting there.
Because I think this whole conversation is so interesting. Like even what you led with, which is like that it's, stem from the heart, that's, at least for me, that's a new concept. If people want to learn more about this side of things, everything that we've just discussed, beyond the resource that you already mentioned and reaching out to you directly, is there any introduction to this kind of idea or any resources that you would recommend?
I mean, I would look up the heartmathinstitute.org. They use a lot of science because that's how most people want to be engaged initially. They want the science. That's the safety. That's the safety net. And then once you kind of understand, like, okay, my heart pumps blood, but wait a minute, yeah, I think love is a part of this whole existence. And wait a minute, I haven't really felt that sensation in my heart. And you're telling me that, and I discovered through this, through some of my own health issues, that I was thinking about love. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about caring. And this was at a time I was connected to a whole bunch of electrodes, and I was looking at this huge wave on a screen, and they were kind of showing me how my heart and my brain were communicating. And I was like, oh, wow, you gotta be kidding me. This whole time I've just been thinking about caring. And then when I recognized that, oh, this piece, and like, so many people have anxiety. Well, where do they feel it, right? They feel it here. Most of us feel most of our discomfort here, here in the trunk of the body. And so that HeartMath Institute is, I would say start there. And once you start kind of looking at, oh, okay, I can do a simple little technique, or you're like, I guess I haven't felt that fluttery sensation. And sometimes it's not about, thinking about love and what have you. It can, go watch your favorite, Family Guy. Crass, okay, fine. But you'll start to notice a little bit of a difference in the chest and the body, because we're just consumers of information right now. Just insanity up here. We want to know more and more and more, but it shuts down this organ. And so, I would say that piece, and it's also helped me in business significantly.
Tell me about the foundation. How did this come to be?
My husband and his whole family, the Soutos, they're called. So they're a Portuguese family. They have a family farm in the Okanagan. So they grew up working really hard, harder than anybody I've actually ever met. I think it's also because they're Portuguese. They work day and night, understanding trees and growing. And so as years went on, my husband and his brother, they got older and they branched off and they came out to Alberta. His father was here first, but they started selling fruit initially at the farmers markets. And so I've always loved good food, but I met my husband at a health and wellness show. And from there, we've been together for 16 years. And I was, a real outsider, kind of looking at everything. But I got to observe growing other farmers. And as time has gone on, the family they also love business. They love, if you've ever been to a farmer's market, it's also, if you go to a really great stall, they're also performers, right? They're not just salespeople, but they're performers. They love engaging. And so my husband and his family are very much like that. So it's always been fascinating to witness having an incredible product, but also that people don't just come to buy the food. They come, yes, for the connection, but they also come to be entertained. So, so through that, their businesses grew, and my husband and his brother Daniel, they made a juicing facility. So juice, you might like it, you might not. It's nothing really like, oh, wow, you make juice. But even through that, we got to see how all the regulations and everything works. And apple juice has a very nostalgic kind of feeling to it. Most people are drinking apple juice in capacities and from brands that are not what they used to be. So when someone drinks the apple juice we make, it's like drinking chicken soup. You're like, oh, wait a minute. I remember this. I remember this taste. So at the time, In 2022, my mom was diagnosed with a terminal cancer. And so I often don't bring this up. Like, this is my why for the POM MD story, but I don't discuss it all the time because I think, A, I don't want it to be all about that. And B, I tend to get quite teary. So sometimes, we don't need me crying like a baby every time I have a conversation about it. So I just kind of put it there. So she was diagnosed with a terminal cancer, and she was given 2 weeks to live. She ended up staying for a year, and with a really dire diagnosis, but relatively comfortable. So it was my sister and myself that looked after her. So she was, at my home quite a bit. And she was thirsty. So we went everywhere looking for hydration for her. And hydration has never been a big thing on my radar. But at the time I was like, wait a minute, we got to sort this out. And so everything was fluorescent or had additives, or if it was natural, it tasted too sweet. Like, something can be natural, but your senses can still tell you, like, wait a minute, something's not right about this. So we happened to have, about 6 months into this, a meeting with a local doctor. We were just discussing some pain points and business. And she was like, wait a minute, you guys have like the best apple juice ever. We suggest, as doctors, to give dilute apple juice as hydration in hospital and clinic all the time. And I was like, oh, really? So she was like, I think we can make something and enhance it significantly, that it actually is applicable. And I don't know why I decided that was a good time to do this, but I also, I was also driven by, whether I disclosed it or not, the ability to make my mom proud. I think no matter how old you are, no matter what relationship you have with your parents, it's like this innate thing that you want to make them proud. So my mom was around for many of the meetings, all the taste testing. She helped significantly. She was in the background, either sleeping or listening or this. She was around for the whole thing. And my brother was the one in the facility juicing. So this was, for me, the ability to make something that my mom would use, would enjoy, was proud of. And I didn't even think a lot beyond that, even though logically I knew that, okay, well, we're using compliance, we're creating labels, we have a website, like, okay, maybe. But I didn't really think beyond that in the midst of it, because about 6 months in, then she passed. So that we got to sell POM MD at markets. And so our family with Steve and Dan's and Souto Farms, they service about 70 markets within Alberta, and also Sobeys and Safeways. So we have the ability to test out right in front of us, do people like this? Do they not? Is this going to work? And then, the feedback was significant and overwhelming. If you're looking at a can, you probably just would walk past it. But when you're tasting it, you don't even need my backstory or anything else like that. You just need to know it's an alternative to what you're currently using. And the feedback was, significant, especially for families with kids in sport, families that, elderly, because it tastes good, and your senses know that it's not, you're not drinking garbage just for the sake of it. So it started to grow from there. And I would say, like any startup, even though we have the foundation, of the fruit business and the manufacturing of the juice. Like any startup business, it's like no matter who you work with, it's like entering into a marriage. All your strengths, all your challenges, they get exposed. And so that is always one thing in business that I think people don't think about, is that when you're put under pressure, your personality is going to come out for better or for worse. And that's really the real kicker in business, is that if you can work on yourself the same time as you're doing all the operational things, you're going to get somewhere. You're going to get somewhere. And so you can have a great product, but no ability to kind of get it out there, or you can be a master at marketing and have a crappy product. Either way, you might get somewhere, but I think the people that in general really get somewhere, but also can sustain that, are people that have some introspection, that can be like, wait a minute, okay, I misbehaved in this meeting, or wait a minute, I shouldn't have done this or this or this, rather than just blinders and, operational everything else. So the Dragon's Den, I don't know, but personally speaking, I've consumed Dragon's Den like no other. I just love it. I love every part of it. I would say anyone who likes Dragon's Den would understand that I love watching the failures. I love watching the successes. I like seeing how they do everything. I like personally following up, like, where did that business go? Did that person really invest? What happened there? It's kind of like healthcare for me. I like to figure out kind of how it went. And so we've tried in different capacities to work with different people in that industry, but we just happen, I'll get the long story short, but we happen to get on for this season. So we filmed in May 2025, so that's where we are right now, right? And our air date's January 8th. And yeah, the filming of it, it's wild. It's wild. Of course they edit it, we'll edit it in many different ways. I would say the Dragons are fairly astute. They had feedback or ways of conversing with all of us that some of it was positive, some of it was not. And I would say that they were, even though it's for TV, they were accurate about a lot of things. Not everything, but a lot of things. Some of the things that maybe were perceived negative feedback or constructive, instead of being like, that's not true, in true fashion, I was like, okay, how can we shift this? How can we change this? So, yeah, but walking on the stage through those doors was a really surreal moment. And yeah, it was a really surreal moment. It's everything you wish it could have been or would be, but you always wish you had more time, right? Because it's like any big experience, it's over like that. So yeah, I don't know. I loved it, and I love anything positive and negative. I think it's all incredible.
There's so much to dive into there. I mean, first of all, congratulations. That's a huge opportunity, and really cool experience. And I really like what you said there, that, whether true or not, the feedback that you got was real from that individual and their experience, right? And I think that's a really cool lesson for a lot of people, or thought rather, that, just because somebody's feedback is true or not doesn't matter, because it's their experience, their perception, and so that should be taken somehow, right? Yeah, or considered in some avenue.
Yeah. I strongly feel that. And I think I have met some people, quite a few people that have been on Dragon's Den that have had positives and then had, they say, oh, well, that was horrible. And the ones that have said it was horrible, I wonder if they've ever really pondered what was being said. Because I don't know, at least right now, the season that I was on, and maybe in the past it was different. Maybe there were some players on there that just really just loved to annihilate people on air. Maybe. I could probably name a few where I was like, okay, yeah, probably. They probably enjoyed just kind of beating people down. But I would say for this current group, they all have their sassy personalities, but they're also very astute. Yeah. And I'm like, why would you not, even if you think it's just for TV, why would you not soak in every last bit of what was given to you for feedback? So, yeah.
And you don't get to see the episode before it's released, right? So it's January 8th is going to be an experience. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, I know all the pieces. I know even on stage, I knew, I was like, oh, they're going to use that. They're going to use that. I'm pretty sure I know how it's going to be edited. I'm totally here for it. I love it. We have some clips. We posted something on our social media, but and we've seen a few more, but the whole episode, because we were on stage for an hour, and I think each episode is only about 20 minutes or so or less. So there's a lot to shave down. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be popcorn worthy. I'll tell you that. It's going to be popcorn worthy, but hey, such is life. I think anything popcorn worthy kind of stands the test of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've shared kind of your journey, which thank you for doing that. It's such an incredible, like, your why, and so as you mentioned, sometimes you don't share that, and I'm really glad you shared that with us today. Where do you see POM MD going in the future? What's the next steps?
We have incredible feedback when it comes to sport, and almost that's a natural fit when you talk about hydration. That space is full of other beverages that have large non-competes. So it's very hard to break into that. So I think that is going to be a slow and steady race. The other place that is more, much more important for me is in the health space. So where are we Thursday? Oh, it was just yesterday. Just yesterday, we went and delivered POM MD to the Cross Cancer Institute, and that's where my mom attended for some of her care. And if you're in any hospital setting, you'll notice that there's only so many options for beverage and food. And I'll leave it at that. Okay. And so we did get contacted by a big distributor. And again, going back to the heart, my heart just explodes at the possibility of seeing it being offered in medical settings when people are struggling, that they can receive a taste of comfort while they're kind of moving through whatever they need to move through. So I see healthcare being a piece of this. Beyond that, we now have some advisors that are working with us, through our experience, our media experience and beyond. One of them is Ted Fleming. So he is
Hard take.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know him, but he's just a stellar human being. And so he was gracious enough to just meet with us out of a LinkedIn message over 2 years ago. And I don't know what it is about us that he He sees something, I think, but I know how to spot someone who is not all lights and glam. They really have it together in here and here. And so he's, you know, we kind of understand our own bubble, but there's a whole other bubble out there that we could navigate by ourselves, but we've realized we can't. It would be much easier if we had someone else kind of just guiding the ship a little bit. And we're still very much a baby business, very much. And he is someone that, yeah, I don't know where he came from, but he's a good human. And I think you'll need to find, you know, someone like that that can help kind of guide the ship a little bit.
It really is about the right people. I know that's a cliche thing to say, and we talk about it so much on this show, but the right people are everything. And what you're identifying too, which is, you know, is truly special, is that it doesn't always come from, it's not always about the people that you hire, but also the people that are helping you at the highest level, right? Like those mentors or the community around you.
Yeah, because it's, you know, mentorship, yes, possibly they've gone through most of the things you've gone through, but there's also a lot of people pulling at them. They have a lot of things on their plate. Like, a mentorship is not for the faint of heart. And so whenever we get someone, because we're usually quite self-sufficient, whenever we can find someone like Ted, and there's another individual too, it is, you're almost like gobsmacked. You're like, oh wow. We get to have someone who not just on paper looks good, but is really a good human, you know, a good human. And it makes you, because sometimes when you're growing a business or you're out and about in all these industries, you get faced with many different personalities, and it can be a bit of a downer when you're like, should I even do this? Because everyone that's doing this is slightly does not have the same integrity.
Is not leading with their heart.
Yeah, I didn't want to sound like total cheeseball, but I was like, can you even do business by leading with the heart and the head and do it well? You can, but it's harder to find those individuals. So when you do, your body actually responds to it. Your body was like, oh, okay. You know, everyone talks about it, gut instincts. We all have those tells in the body. But when you're doing business in particular, there's this adrenaline rush, this tension that you feel in your body that you're just like, go, go, go. And then you're making, you know, poor collaborative decisions. And so Ted, seeing Ted, meeting with Ted, working with Ted, watching how Ted is also, how other people view him, you know, that's a diamond in the rough, right? And so it's, I know that business can be navigated in a way where, you know, it's not all about love, but you can be a decent human and still do it. You're not going to you'll get annihilated, I'm sure, but there are some people that are doing it. And at the end of the day, I don't want it to be about, it can't be about the paycheck. Because right now we're a startup, so there's really no paycheck. But even that, it can't be. It just wouldn't work for our personalities.
Well, I mean, everything that we've discussed today leads to the fact that would never be the case for you. You know, I don't see that. It's cool because when I have these conversations, I get to, you know, at a high level see the through line from the beginning when you were at, you know, Fairmont to where you are today. And from a very bird's eye view perspective, obviously, there's a bit of a through line to everybody's story. And, we haven't chatted about monetary things at all today. And it's all been leading with the heart and kind of leaning into the uncomfortable. And that seems like exactly what you're doing with your business. It's very exciting to watch. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And then, and then you have moments and you're like, what am I doing? Right? Like, what am I doing? But not to bring up Ted again, but I will. I had one conversation probably a year ago and I was like, well, maybe like, is this really worth it? I know every business person says that. And he just really quietly said, if you weren't doing this, you'd be doing something else. It's kind of who you are. So just focus on what's going on right now. Because you would be doing something else. So you drop this, you're going to be in the same situation in the future. So just figure it out. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yeah. And you're no stranger to leaning into this discomfort anyways, right? That question, like you said, everybody kind of asks themselves that. But it stems from, whether it be discomfort or whether it be not sure about the purpose or whatever the case may be. I mean, everybody questions that.
Yes. Yeah. Constantly. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, yeah.
But it's about the justification, how you come out of that, what you tell yourself to, not even tell yourself because that would be negative, but you know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding that purpose.
It's a lot of conversation. A lot of conversation. So, yeah.
What does success look like to you?
I, like every other human being, have faults. And I would say my success at the end of it is repairing some relationships that where I've been in the wrong, tending to those blind spots. And there's no part of me that has any need to leave a legacy at all. But I do want to... Sorry.
No, please take your time.
I think, I know from witnessing it and seeing it on my last breath, I do want to know that I lived my life to the best of my ability. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I don't even think about the word success when we talk about legacy or, how big a company could be. I think about my last breath. And so I want to be able to look back and say, okay, I tended to all my wrongs and I used my talents to the best of my ability. And I received some love along the way too. Those are the things that I think about, and it's not for any belief system about where I'm going after. It's just I was given a gift of living, and did I completely blow it or not? And I think that is a driving factor for success for me. Because we're all imperfect humans, right? But how do they tend to all the ups and downs? And I get better at it as years go by, right? And that's the proof to me that I'm learning. Yeah. So, I mean, my mom didn't even make me cry. So, yeah, it's more of a context, I think, about how the conversation feels. Yeah. And of course I have kids and I want them to have the best life ever. But has nothing to do with monetary. I want them to be able to navigate all the wild ups and downs of life. So they can, again, on their last breath too, be able to be like, oh, yeah, that was a really wild and incredible and painful and intense and cool ride. So
I love that answer. And I don't have kids myself, but I do know that, you know, the best thing that you can do for them is be a good example and show them the way that they should, you know, that they can lead their lives. And it sounds like you're doing nothing shy of doing that perfectly. So,
well, I wouldn't say perfectly, but
perfect.
but yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So yeah, it's the last breath piece.
Thank you, Sabrina, for being here today. Thank you for this conversation, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story and the truth behind it. And I'm really happy the course we took and the different kind of weaving, diving a little bit more into your time in Chinese medicine and your approach to that, all the way through to POM MD and everything you're doing there. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lovely conversation. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your interest.